Good morning, Fargo. Today is March 10th. I'm going to be reviewing the agenda for the City Commission meeting on February 27th. There were four issues I'm going to go over here with you today. The first was the election task force, and what we had was a list of findings from the election task force. We looked at things like, should the mayor be full-time? What should be the composition of the Fargo City Commission? Should we have more people or less, maybe? We talked about how we vote, whether that be through approval voting or through our current system. There were a long list of things that we went over, and I want to give people the power to go ahead and start looking at these things now. These issues will come up. We received and filed this. Everyone voted to do that, and at some point, there's going to be a push for something to change, and I want that to be a positive change. Now, whatever you believe that to be, whether you think we should have 7 commissioners or keep our current system, whether we should have a ward system or keep our current system, or maybe do something else, approval voting came up. I want you to start educating yourselves now on what these things all mean, because it will affect how the commission is run, and that can be in a positive way or a negative way. Let me give you an example. A ward system. Many people in the city of Fargo have a negative view of a ward system because of other cities in our region that do it that way. But what I've also heard is that, one, we want people to be elected with a strong majority, which we don't currently have. And two, I hear people say all the time, I don't feel like I'm being represented. Well, in a ward system, someone from your region will represent you. That will be their job, not only to represent the city of Fargo, but also in your region. Currently, the mayor, Tony Gehrig, and I live within less than a square mile of each other in South Fargo. I believe Dave Papcorn lives in North Fargo, and John Strand lives kind of in the center. Well, there are neighborhoods all around our city that aren't being represented there. So that is an issue, in my opinion. And I believe a ward system will not only fix that problem, but it also will give people, there'll be less people running for a single seat, which means you'll likely have a higher percent of a person winning. So if you have 2 or 3 people running, or even 4, you'll have a better chance of getting that 50% than if there's, say, 6 people running for 1 seat, which is what I had to contend with when I ran, and won with only 22.5% of the vote. So these are issues that I want people to start looking into now, because they will crop up, and I want everyone to have a context of what they all mean. So go on our webpage and find what that is. If you want me to show you where those are at, by all means contact me. It's an important issue, and it will come up here in the city of Fargo. I asked at the meeting that at the meeting before this one on the 13th, we reviewed the guidelines for the Tax Exempt Review Committee. Those only looked at things like pilots. They did not review TIFs. They did not review the Renaissance Zone. So, knowing that we have reviewed some of our incentives, why not review them all? Some of these incentives, like a pilot, or excuse me, like the Renaissance Zone and TIFs, have not been reviewed for over a decade. Fargo is different today than it was a decade ago. We need to review our policies on a regular basis to make sure that they are meeting the expectations of our constituents, which is you. I made that motion. It was accepted by 4 of the commissioners, and Dave Papcorn voted against reviewing that. There was a Renaissance Zone exemption on the agenda, which I obviously voted no against. And finally, we spoke to our police chief, Chief Todd, about downtown policing. And he gave us kind of a rundown of what some of those struggles are. Beat 11 is what that's known as. That's downtown Fargo for policing purposes. It obviously has some of the higher crimes when it comes to intoxication and other alcohol-related crimes, theft and things like that as well. It's a struggle. It is when you have an entertainment district like downtown to police those. One tool that our department has used are cameras. And when this came out in 2012, I was an opponent. I was against the cameras because we were told that cameras would, 1, reduce crimes, and 2, deter crimes, and then finally said we would catch more criminals in the long run. I have asked that information, now we've been doing it for 4 years now, 5 years. We're talking about expanding the program, making it more expensive, adding cameras and updating the cameras that we do already have. And I've asked one simple question. Show me data that proves that we have deterred crimes, solved more crimes, and stopped crimes. I think that's a reasonable request. It is hard to prove. Don't get me wrong, it is hard to prove. But if we can't be information or data based and driven, then we're basically guessing. Everything we do in this, but most everything we do is data driven. You always have to make the argument based on the data that you have. So I've simply asked that we look back and see what that data is. I made the argument 5 years ago that this program would expand and change and morph into something bigger without the data. I made that argument 5 years ago, and that appears to be what is happening today. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope that the commission and the police department comes forward with that data. I've met with Chief Todd. He was very gracious and showed me the cameras and showed me some of the things that they have. And I simply hope that we have a larger discussion on these things, because look, other cities have tried this. We're not the first to do it. Other cities have had varying levels of success. Some have stopped doing it. And I want to, if we're going to continue, I want to be able to tell people of Fargo that we're doing what's best for you. And there are concerns. There's a cost concern. John Strand brought up the privacy concern, which I obviously share as well. There is a conversation nationally going on about cameras and being under surveillance. So I hope that the city of Fargo has that conversation. As long as I'm here, we will have that conversation. Hope people get involved and have their voices heard one way or another. Whether you agree with me or disagree with me, we still want to hear from you. This was your wrap-up for the February 27th meeting. If you have any questions or comments, please contact me or comment on the link below. And as usual, watch how us commissioners are spending your tax dollars. Thank you.